At the dawn of human history, there were no states, no political parties, and no ballot boxes. Still, people were trying to make sense of the world, establish order, and understand what was right. This video goes right there, to the period when the first ideas, the first beliefs, and the earliest social orientations emerged. The foundations of what we call ideology today were laid in that era. I'm BİLARCHİE. In this video, I will examine the oldest ideologies in world history. Primitive communism. Primitive communism refers to the prehistoric period when people lived in close harmony with nature, under an egalitarian and classless social order. During this period, the means of production were used collectively. Private property, social classes, and the state had not yet emerged. Land, tools, and products did not belong to private individuals but were used collectively. Society was classless. There was no distinction between rulers and the ruled. Life was organized around tribes or clans. Production was carried out with simple tools and collective labor. Hunting, gathering, and primitive agriculture were the main sources of livelihood. There was almost no surplus production. Therefore, equality was practically mandatory. In short, primitive communism is a classless, egalitarian social order that characterizes the earliest stages of human history, based on community-oriented production and communal living. The caste system. The caste system is a social structure particularly associated with India. People are strictly divided into hereditary classes, and moving between these classes is almost impossible. Social status is determined by the family and social group one is born into, and it is passed down hereditarily. People are born into a specific caste, that is, a class, and generally live, marry, and work within that caste. There is almost no upward or downward social mobility. You die in the same stratum you were born into. Castes are generally associated with certain professions or social duties and with religious rituals. There are four main castes. Brahmins are usually made up of priests and teachers. Kshatriyas are made up of warriors and rulers. Vaishyas consist of the merchant and farmer class. Shudras, on the other hand, are made up of workers and servants. Feudalism. Feudalism is the medieval order based on land and mutual obligations dominated by local powers. In this hierarchical, social, and economic system, land-owning nobles provide governance to the peasants who work the land in exchange for certain rights and protection. Power is measured by land. Below the king are nobles such as dukes, counts, and knights. Peasants work the land, pay taxes, and sustain their lives in exchange for limited freedoms. The system operates on mutual protection and loyalty. Central state authority is weak, while local nobles are strong. In short, it is about land and mutual dependence. It is the medieval order dominated by local powers that prevail. Monarchy. Monarchy is a form of government in which sovereignty is concentrated in a single person. The throne usually passes from father to son, but in history, it has sometimes been transferred to a brother or a nephew as well. Sometimes a ruler seizes power and reigns until death, while at other times he abdicates the throne during his lifetime and transfers authority to his successor. In monarchies, rulers often support their authority with religion or divine legitimacy. Theocracy. Theocracy is a form of government in which sovereignty is believed to belong to God, and this sovereignty is exercised through religious leaders or sacred texts. Religious leaders are at the head of the state, or rulers claim that they derive their authority from divine sources. Holy books and religious rules can take the place of constitutions. There is no separation between religion and the state. The rights of citizens depend on the interpretation of religious authorities. Oligarchy. Oligarchy is a system in which governance is carried out not by all the people but by a narrow minority, usually the wealthy nobles or military political elites. The authority to make decisions is in the hands of a selected minority. The people have no direct influence on the government. This group generally protects its own interests. Public participation in governance is very limited or completely absent. Oligarchy is the opposite of democracy and is often oppressive. Aristocracy. Aristocracy is a form of government in which power is held by a minority with hereditary privileges, nobles, or those considered the most virtuous and knowledgeable. Generally, noble families, military or religious elites hold power. The right to govern does not belong to the people, but to a certain upper class. In this system, rulers are mostly inclined to protect the interests of their own class. The idea of aristocracy is rooted in ancient Greece's belief that those who are virtuous and knowledgeable should govern. The difference between aristocracy and oligarchy is this. Aristocracy claims to be the rule of the best. Oligarchy, on the other hand, is the concentration of power in the hands of a minority, usually to the detriment of the people. Republic. A republic is a form of government in which sovereignty belongs to the people and is exercised either directly or indirectly, where leaders come to power through elections, and there is no place for hereditary monarchy. Popular sovereignty is fundamental. Leaders are elected by vote. The rule of law and the constitution are at the forefront. The principle of separation of powers is adopted. Republics are generally democratic and adhere to democratic principles. However, not every republic is a democracy. For example, the Islamic Republic of Iran or the Democratic People's Republic of Korea are often cited. Democracy. Democracy is a form of government in which sovereignty belongs to the people, and citizens participate in decision-making processes either by electing their representatives through voting or by direct involvement. There are two main types of democracy: direct democracy and representative democracy. In direct democracy, the people make decisions themselves without any intermediaries. Referendums are an example of this. This is an example. In representative democracy, the people elect representatives, in other words, members of parliament, to make decisions on their behalf. Although democracy is often associated with a republic, the two are not exactly the same. Democracy is based on the principle that sovereignty belongs to the people and that the people determine their own destiny. A republic, on the other hand, is a system in which the state is governed by representatives elected by the people, without a hereditary monarchy. Despotism. Despotism is an authoritarian form of government in which all power is concentrated in a single leader, usually a king, dictator, or tyrant, and there is no consent from the people. Laws, statutes, and traditions can be disregarded or changed at the whim of the ruler. All power is concentrated in a single person. Citizens do not participate in the government. Elections either do not exist or are merely symbolic. Control is maintained through oppression, censorship, and fear. Institutions such as the judiciary and legislature are weak or completely under the command of the ruler. Autocracy may rely to some extent on traditions and laws. However, despotism is the absolute rule of arbitrary power without any checks or balances. So what do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. We've reached the end of today's video. By supporting this first video of mine and subscribing to the channel, you can support me. Take care of yourselves. See you.